As the crypto crackdown in the United States continues, many in the industry are wondering if anyone will come to the rescue. Well, there do seem to be quite a few pro-crypto politicians fighting for the industry on the inside. That's because some of them hosted a hearing about the ongoing crypto crackdown, which featured key players in the industry. What was said sheds light on what's really happening and what is yet to come. Today, I'm going to summarize this crypto hearing and tell you exactly what it could mean for the crypto market. This is a video you do not want to miss. The crypto hearing I'll be summarizing today is titled, quote, "Coincidence or Coordinated? The Administration's Attack on the Digital Asset Ecosystem." It was hosted by the House Financial Services Committee, specifically the Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology and Inclusion. Funnily enough, the subcommittee was originally focused solely on diversity and inclusion when it was created by the Democrats in 2019. When the Republicans won the House earlier this year, they basically rebranded the subcommittee to focus on crypto, making it the first crypto-focused subcommittee in the US of A. Not surprisingly, the hearing featured mostly pro-crypto witnesses. Mike Belshie, the CEO of crypto custody company BitGo, Tonya Evans, a law professor at Penn State University, a lawyer named Jonathan Gould, Coinbase's chief legal officer Paul Grewal, and Lee Reiners, a Duke University lecturer. Now, if that last name sounds familiar, that's because Lee participated in another crypto hearing, which we summarized in another video. If you watched that video, you'll know that Lee is very anti-crypto. Anyways, it's important to note that this hearing took place on the 9th of March, which was shortly before Signature Bank was shut down, SVB collapsed, and Circle's USDC stablecoin lost its peg. The dubious circumstances around Signature's shutdown underscore the severity of the crypto crackdown. If you watched our video about Operation Choke Point 2, you'll know the purpose of the crypto crackdown is to entirely cut the crypto industry off from the banking system. This was what the original Operation Choke Point was all about, just with different industries, and the same entities seem to be behind its latest iteration. If you watched our recent video about the man behind Operation Choke Point 2, you'll know that it's being orchestrated by a handful of regulatory agencies, some of whom have been operating with no oversight. What they all have in common is that they have close connections to the Democratic Party. This makes sense considering the original Operation Choke Point was also orchestrated by entities affiliated with the Democratic Party. Note that I am, quite evidently, not a Republican, nor can I vote in US elections. But, if you want my opinion, both US political parties suck, and I hope that decentralized autonomous organizations replace all political parties someday. The only reason I highlight this partisanship is because it's necessary to understand the context of the ongoing crypto crackdown, as well as what was said during the recent crypto hearing. This partisanship also suggests that the crypto crackdown may not end anytime soon, but I'll come back to that later. Now, this hearing began, as all hearings do, and that was with opening statements by the top politicians on the committee from both political parties and the opening statements of the speakers. French Hill was the first to go, and he said everything you'd expect given the circumstances. Congress must create comprehensive crypto regulations ASAP because the current regulation by enforcement can't be allowed to continue. Investor protection should be prioritized, but so too should innovation. He also stressed that there should be specific regulations for stablecoins, which is significant. That's because stablecoins have been the main target of the crypto crackdown. The fact that we haven't seen regulatory action against a stablecoin issuer could be a sign that the worst is yet to come. It's possible that the worst has started by the time you see this video. In any case, French said something else that's important, and that's that the, quote, same risk, same regulation rule that seems to have its origins in the World Economic Forum does not apply to crypto. That's because crypto has different risks and therefore requires different regulations. Amen to that. The second politician to speak was Stephen Lynch. He agreed that innovation is important, but he's more concerned about investor protection. He said he's concerned by transparency in the crypto industry, particularly from crypto exchanges. He pointed to FTX and Celsius as examples of what can happen. Stephen went on to say that he's happy with the Biden administration's approach to crypto regulation so far. He essentially said that the collapse of Silvergate Bank is proof that the regulation by enforcement we've seen ought to continue. A little later, he said regulation by enforcement is a myth. Anyhow, for the witnesses, the first to speak was Mike, who you'll recall is the CEO of BitGo. He reviewed all the regulations that BitGo complies with and said that the company has been working proactively with regulators. The problem, of course, is that regulators haven't been as proactive, particularly the SEC. The second witness to speak was Tonya, who you'll recall is a law professor at Penn State. She started by saying that she's been looking at crypto regulation through a, quote, non-partisan, purely academic lens. Her conclusion? The regulators, especially the SEC, are not being fair to the crypto industry. Tonya then advocated for the CFTC to regulate standard crypto trading and even went as far as demanding that SEC Chairman Gary Gensler answer for his actions. Note that the CFTC is a principles-based regulator. This makes it easier for crypto to comply with the CFTC's regulations than the SEC's. The third witness to speak was Jonathan, who you'll recall is a lawyer. He began by saying that he's speaking in a personal capacity, presumably not to implicate his law firm. Jonathan slammed the anti-crypto regulators for putting out non-binding guidance for banks because it amounts to de facto regulations. Jonathan also pointed out that attempts to completely eliminate risks associated with crypto will result in those risks going elsewhere. That's why the focus should be on managing the risks associated with crypto. He said that it should be up to Congress to determine how much crypto risk banks can take. So, the fourth witness to speak was Paul, who you'll recall is the chief legal officer at Coinbase. Like Mike, Paul explained that Coinbase is committed to compliance. He talked about how most Americans don't trust the existing financial system, hence why 20% of Americans hold or have held cryptocurrency. Paul explained that the UK and the EU are creating their own crypto regulations and that the US is dragging its feet. If you watched our videos about the crypto regulations being proposed in the UK and the EU, you'll know that they're pretty damn good. Paul said that the US needs to act fast to keep up, and I agree. By this point, I was feeling like I'd overdosed on crypto goodwill. However, that little buzz came to an abrupt end with Lee, the fifth witness to speak, who you'll recall is a lecturer at Duke University. He was by far the outlier among the speakers because he spent his time talking about how the problem with crypto isn't regulation, the problem with crypto is crypto. Lee said crypto has no value and regulations won't fix that. Not only that, but he said that the SEC's securities laws do not need to be updated or changed. They're working exactly as intended. He revealed that the SEC has brought over 100 enforcement actions against crypto projects and companies and has yet to lose a single case. Not good news for Ripple. Lee then went full Agent Smith by declaring that the SEC must do more. To do more, the SEC must have full authority over the crypto industry. To have full authority, Congress must pass a law that would classify every single crypto as a security, including BTC. This would give the SEC total control. Lee has even prepared a roadmap for how Congress could do it. It's safe to say that he doesn't have WAGMI tattooed on his chest. So, once all the opening statements were finished, the question period began with the same pecking order of politicians. French was the first to go, and he asked Paul and Mike about what the process is for registering with the SEC. They both said that they've tried and failed to register despite Gary's offers. French then asked Jonathan about the warnings from regulators like the Fed about banks working with crypto. Jonathan said that it's odd how the warnings are so negative, and that it's even more odd that the warnings do not provide a path for banks to comply with whatever the Fed is demanding from them. The second to go was Stephen, and he asked Lee why crypto companies aren't registering with the SEC. To clarify, the SEC has been offering for crypto companies to come in and register, but every time they try, they either get no reply or they get sued. As far as Lee is concerned, they won't register because it isn't profitable. Lee added that existing securities laws mean that it's technically illegal for exchanges to list coins or tokens from crypto projects they have invested in. Stephen followed up by asking whether there will be more FTX-type collapses without crypto regulation. Lee said it doesn't matter. All of crypto is rotten. Breathe, guy, breathe. Now, the third to go was Maxine Waters. She started by saying that she's shocked that Republicans want to investigate the SEC's connections to FTX. I mean, it's not like SBF met with Gary Gensler more than any other regulator. Say, did you know that Maxine blew a kiss to SBF after one of his testimonies? Anywho, Maxine talked about the Fed's warning to banks and the collapse of Silvergate before asking Lee whether regulators are overreaching. As expected, Lee said that regulators are not overreaching. He said they should focus on fiat on- and off-ramps and prevent big tech from getting involved in crypto. I wonder if that's why Meta recently dropped its NFT plans for Instagram and Facebook. Now, the fourth to go was Frank Lucas. He said that the SEC is regulating by enforcement and how it's crazy that Gary asks crypto companies to register but shows them the door when they arrive. He asked Tonya how this is consistent with the SEC's mandate. She said it's not, and it just creates confusion. Frank then asked Paul whether the CFTC should have authority over crypto trading. Naturally, Paul agreed, so Frank followed up with a second question. Does crypto really pose a threat to the financial system? Believe it or not, but Paul said yes, but said that the simple solution is clear crypto regulation. The fifth to go was Bill Foster, who I will forever remember as the US politician who demanded that the government have the power to reverse crypto transactions. Lo and behold, he asked Lee whether it's appropriate to have permissionless crypto transactions if they allow for illicit financial activity. Lee said that the only solution is to have every country comply with the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF's, crypto regulation recommendations. He also blamed Russia for all of the illicit activity in crypto. Bill also suggested creating a database of registered crypto wallets that have been connected to a digital ID and asked Paul whether this was appropriate. Believe it or not, but Paul said it was, so long as privacy is adequately protected. I hope Paul was referencing decentralized digital ID, not government digital ID. You can find out just how dystopian government digital ID is using the link in the description. I'll also leave a link to our video about the FATF's crypto regulation recommendations. Spoiler alert, they are bad. Now, the sixth to go was Tom Emmer. He began by saying that decentralization is about people taking the power back, and the people in power don't like that. He correctly pointed out that the fundamental purpose of the Biden administration's approach to crypto is total control of the financial system. Tom then fired off a few questions to the witnesses, and the only one worth mentioning was about what effects the crypto crackdown was having on the industry. Jonathan explained that it's making it harder for crypto to get access to banking services, but said this is slightly different from Operation Choke Point. Jonathan elaborated that the difference is that the Biden administration is doing everything out in the open. It's obvious to everyone that he's cracking down on crypto. He said it's also different because the crackdown doesn't just affect crypto, but all kinds of financial technologies, such as virtual banking apps. Now, the seventh to go was Richie Torres, who happens to be one of the few pro-crypto politicians in the Democratic Party. Richie asked Mike whether the SEC was targeting onshore or offshore crypto companies, and whether it's true that a sort of turf war is going on between the SEC and the CFTC. Mike said that the SEC appears to be targeting onshore crypto companies and confirmed that there does seem to be a turf war between the SEC and the CFTC over who gets to regulate crypto. This is interesting because it suggests that offshore crypto companies like Binance and Tether could be safe. Speaking of which, Richie asked Paul how it's possible that stablecoins are securities if there's no expectation of profit, and how it's possible that ETH is a security if there's nobody you can identify who's driving the expectation of profit. This is a reference to the SEC's flawed reasoning about both assets. Paul conceded that it doesn't make any sense. Richie followed up by asking whether it's possible for a cryptocurrency to start off centralized and become decentralized over time. What's interesting is that Paul said this is true in both directions. A crypto can become more centralized as well. Eighth to go was Warren Davidson. He started by saying that he's been waiting to have this hearing since 2017. Gosh. He said that it's finally time to create comprehensive crypto regulations that account for the fact that you can't enforce traditional financial regulations at the protocol level. Now we're talking. After submitting half a dozen statements from crypto lobbying groups to the record, Warren asked some simple questions. Does the SEC regulate securities or payment systems? Tonya answered securities. Is self-custody important and does it protect you from FTX? Paul answered yes to both. Warren then said something downright epic, and that's that self-custody of crypto is analogous to holding cash and should therefore be protected by regulations. His final question was whether FTX crashed because of crypto or because of fraud. Jonathan answered that it was because of fraud. If you're still in the dark over what happened to FTX, you can check out our video about that using the link in the description. I digress. Now, the ninth to go was Al Green. He asked Lee what needs to be done to protect investors. Lee said that regulators just need to apply existing rules to cryptocurrency and that it's, quote, not that complicated. He added that he's against the CFTC regulating crypto. He wants the SEC to do it all. The 10th to go was John Rose. He asked Paul to explain the regulations that crypto exchanges need to comply with. Paul went on to list the dozens of state regulations that Coinbase complies with. John then asked all the witnesses whether merging the SEC and CFTC is a good idea for crypto regulations. Mike said that it would be best if the CFTC regulates crypto by itself. Tonya said that combining the two would be complex and potentially pointless as they're supposed to be working together already. Jonathan and Paul gave more nuanced answers which were likewise slanted towards the CFTC. When it was Lee's turn to reply, John interrupted him by saying something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, my time has expired. Please stop talking." Based. Now, the 11th to go was Sean Caston. Sean asked how it's possible that crypto can have a market cap in the trillions when there have been $28 billion of bankruptcies so far. He said that this massive discrepancy suggests that the actual value of the crypto market is much smaller, which may be true. Sean then asked Lee whether there were any systemically important crypto companies. Lee said, thankfully, no, and said that it's ironic crypto is trying to keep its access to banking services. He also said that crypto has no value. All the valuations are completely fake. Tell that to the private equity market. Snarky comments aside, the 12th to go was Brian Stale. He asked Paul whether the SEC was getting in the way of crypto innovation. Paul was careful not to speak badly of the SEC. All he said was that the SEC's approach is causing the US to fall behind on crypto innovation and that this is a national security risk. The 13th to go was Wiley Nickel. Great name. He revealed that he's working with Richie and Patrick McHenry on a pro-crypto bill. He asked Lee what regulations are needed to ensure that crypto innovation continues. Lee said there is no innovation in crypto. He repeated that the SEC should be in control. The 14th to go was Mike Flood. He asked Jonathan about the SEC's recently proposed crypto custody rule. Jonathan said that it forces banks to count the crypto they're holding for their clients as assets on their balance sheets, which makes them unwilling to custody cryptocurrencies. The 15th to go was Brad Sherman, and what he said is so ridiculous that it almost hurts to repeat it. Brad said that investing in crypto is like investing in the North Korean economy. He said that cryptocurrency literally means hidden money and that only criminals want hidden money. Brad simultaneously acknowledged that investing in crypto is a way of undermining the US dollar status as the world's reserve currency. He also said that US politicians can't support SBF's proposal to get the SEC out of crypto regulation. He didn't have any questions for the witnesses. What a character. The 16th to go was William Timmons. He asked Paul what use cases there were in crypto besides financial stuff. Paul listed everything you'd expect: NFTs, decentralized digital ID, and so on. William asked if it's possible to realize these use cases if all cryptos are securities. Paul said no. The 17th to go was Erin Houchin. She took a shot at Lee and asked Mike if crypto would have gone overseas if there were crypto regulations in the US. Mike's answer was no. She asked Paul what effects the UK and EU's crypto regulations will have. He said the US won't be able to set the standards. This doesn't seem to be entirely accurate because it appears that the US is in the process of pushing global crypto standards using the Financial Stability Board, or FSB. Whether or not they will succeed is another question entirely, and the fact that the UK and EU have gone rogue suggests the answer is no. More about the FSB's upcoming global crypto regulation recommendations in the description. Moving on. Now, the 18th to go was Brian Donalds. He dismissed Biden's anti-crypto budget for 2024 and accused Gary Gensler of trying to kill the crypto industry. He added that the Dodd-Frank Act was a disaster. For reference, the Dodd-Frank Act created the entities that are allegedly behind the crypto crackdown. Brian asked the witnesses whether US regulators even have the technical capacity to regulate the industry and, if they don't, whether it's prudent to create a crypto-specific regulator. The witnesses agreed, except for Lee, of course, but they all continued to subtly push for the CFTC to have crypto authority. The final politician to ask questions was Sam Nunn. He started by blasting the Biden administration's approach to crypto regulation and asked the witnesses what the downsides were of crypto going offshore. Paul reiterated that it creates a national security risk and also results in lost economic growth. Okay then, crunch time. What does all this mean for the crypto market? Well, in short, what was said during the hearing suggests that there are lots of pro-crypto politicians on both sides of the aisle who are trying to get pro-crypto regulations passed. The problem is that they are not in control. Right now, an anti-crypto administration is in control and will continue to be until the 2024 election at the earliest. Even then, it might not be until sometime after that election that pro-crypto regulations actually get passed, assuming, of course, a Republican president is elected. This means there could be at least 2 years to go. The caveat is that this timeline only applies to crypto regulations in the United States. Recall that the UK and the EU are in the process of rolling out their own, surprisingly pro-crypto regulations. Hong Kong is also on the cusp of legalizing crypto and could have institutions investing as soon as this summer. That is why I and many others believe that the crypto bear market bottom could occur in the coming months, assuming it hasn't happened already, of course. Once Hong Kong legalizes crypto in June and crypto regulations in the UK and EU come into force later this year, it's hard to see how crypto could go lower. Between now and then, though, there's no shortage of crypto and macro factors that could take the crypto market lower. The biggest crypto factor is a crackdown on stablecoins in the United States. The biggest macro factor is the Fed continuing to raise interest rates and keeping them higher for longer. From where I'm standing, it looks like the outcome of both of these two big factors will be determined by the summer. This means another 2 to 3 months of uncertainty. The silver lining to this crypto crackdown is that it will ultimately incentivize the creation of decentralized alternatives. Now, you could argue that a true cryptocurrency can't be regulated because there's no centralized point at which regulators can apply pressure to achieve compliance. Unfortunately, there are only a handful of cryptocurrencies that meet these criteria, and the trend towards centralization has been strong in recent years. Fortunately, the crypto crackdown could mean that more cryptocurrencies meet these criteria and that a new trend towards decentralization begins. In sum, then, there's a crypto crackdown going on in the United States, and it is going to suck in the short term. In the long term, however, it's going to be of huge benefit to the industry. Reasonable crypto regulations will eventually come, and trillions of dollars will flow into the market without restrictions. Just remember that financial freedom doesn't mean number go up. It means the ability to truly own your assets and decide how and when they are spent. The only way to achieve this ability is through decentralization. This will lead to even bigger gains once the real investment comes, and it is coming slowly but surely. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.